Jehovah directed that 7 nations in Canaan were to be eliminated. And the Gibeonites were among them, but they had a plan. They pretended to be from a far-off nation that wasn't slated for destruction. And so the elders, not consulting Jehovah, they made a vow that the Gibeonites would be spared. They made a covenant with the Gibeonites. Well, it wasn't long, but what the Israelites realized, they'd been tricked. But even though their oath had been obtained under false pretenses, they agreed to keep their word. But it's what happens next that's interesting. 5 kings of the Amorites find out that the Israelites and the Gibeonites have made a covenant, and they are furious. And so they are determined to kill all the Gibeonites, which was really what Jehovah had intended in the first place.
How charming. Jehovah intended all along for the Gibeonites to all be killed. Men, women, children, babies. If you were a Gibeonite, if you were unfortunate enough to be born into a particular nation, you were slated for destruction. That's how David Splane casually puts it. You were due to be eliminated. Another word he uses. Am I the only one, or is David Splane revealing a very disturbing streak to his character in how casually he talks about genocide, as though this is all perfectly normal, perfectly logical and acceptable? Oh, makes perfect sense that all of these nations should be slated for destruction. And hey, now there's this situation where one of these nations makes a deal under false pretenses, and another of the nations decides to fight them and do God's dirty work for him. Does he not hear the words coming out of his mouth? This, for me, again hints at a very disturbing side to David Splane's psychology. If he is so casual about the thought of entire nations being slaughtered.
What did Jehovah do? He could have said, well, that solves your problem. You promised the Gibeonites that you wouldn't put them to death, so you can sit back and let the Amorites do the job. But what did Jehovah do? Joshua chapter 10 and verse 8. Jehovah then said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, for I have handed them over to you. Not one of them will be able to stand against you." Imagine the humility. Jehovah helps the Israelites to keep a promise they had no business making. That is humility.
Yes, that's the lesson I take from this Bible verse, the humility of God. He's such a great, merciful, humble God for making alternative arrangements so that the 5 kings who were going to destroy the Gibeonites would themselves be destroyed. I'm sorry, I'm just not impressed, David Splane. I'm not impressed with anything about this Bible verse. Unfortunately, as I've already expressed, there's no reason to take any of this seriously. There's no reason to feel sorry for any of these nations that were slated for destruction, any of these men, women, children, babies who were supposedly slaughtered or whose fathers were slaughtered in warfare, because according to archaeologists, none of this actually happened. But even if it did happen, what does it teach us about God? If his solution, when he is in control of human developments, he has at his disposal a nation that he can manipulate, that he can rule over and administer and give perfect laws to and guide in some way. And the best way he can come up with to run this nation, to relocate it from one part of planet Earth to another part of planet Earth, involves bloodshed and slaughter. I don't see any special humility in any of this narrative. And isn't it odd to see someone like David Splane, who believes himself to be one of 8 individuals on the planet who speaks for God, lecturing a class of Gilead graduates about the need to be humble?